a novel written by Karl Heiss. The Devil is Not to Blame, Forgotten Sly Men. Chapter 12, Back Home. In a time of universal deceit, telling the truth becomes a revolutionary act. George Orwell. After that historical visit and memorable stay in the impressive city of Mexico, Joseph Duarte bid farewell to the companions and to the family of Joe Parkson. The departure of this angel of the Lord was heartbreaking. The two sisters of Joe Parkson were very sad to see go away their love. The scene of the crying sisters was moving. They looked bereaved like the sisters of Lazarus. After a long journey in the other sense, the ambassador and pupil of Reverend J.H. S.J. arrived in his rural area where definitely he will be welcomed with great frenzy. A welcome like this, in some sense, is seen only for a charismatic leader. But for this area, the mere fact of going out and coming in again was an event. Anybody in the situation just looked like a stranger for the enthusiastic villagers. People were eager to have the gist of his adventure, especially the unfortunate ones who were barred from attending the gathering by some mysterious and malign design of the devil. Rodolfo Ramirez has recovered from his sickness and Nino Duarte was still feeling a little itching of the bad name given to him by the widow, Doña Sofia Cruz. Their eagerness to get the news from the brother was to equal the resentment against the bad fate of not going to the famous city. Before assembling people to give him all their ears, he first met the venerable Reverend J.H. S.J. whom he met at the church premises. He has just finished a session with the catechists of the parish. He gave him his written letters and parcels from the companions from Mexico and was accompanied by a crowd to his home. People filled the house. There was no place to sit just to watch him as if he was a newcomer in the area. To travel was an event, not to talk about going to Mexico. That was just a great dream. Many will hardly see come true such dreams before the end of their earthly pilgrimage filled with sorrows. Most people spent their whole life there without seeing the face of the world. The only thing that happened from time to time is the stop of the companions on the way to Mexico. They were simple peasants of humble background. Joseph Duarte or any fellow of his area was most fortunate to point his nose out of the mountainous zone to see other people. One can really not figure out the level of disappointment of the duo made up of Nino Duarte and Rodolfo Ramirez for not being part of the trip. He has not yet taken Sid to make an account of the trip. That many funny questions, some very simplistic, were fired at him. Everybody wanted to know and all asked questions at the same time. It was a pandemonium. How are they? How did they live? Do they speak our dialect? What do they eat? How do they dress? The question about dressing may have been asked by a lady. For you can hardly see a fashionable lady without laying her hand on a fine dress, whether she is a plebeian or a patrician, a believer or an unbeliever, fine-looking or less endowed by nature. You look fatter. What did they give you to eat? What is their favorite dish? Another lady must have asked that question too. It was uncommon, if not totally seen as indecent, for a man to talk about food or eating. That was the preserve of women as commonly believed in those areas, bit alienated from women liberation movement. In fact, they tolerated the idea of a male cook for the priest only on the fact that he is a man of God and had a special status. Otherwise, it is just unthinkable and inconceivable to allow a man to cook. How is their church? That question could have been asked by a male or a female. Even though I strongly suggest that the question put by a man. This unceasing and unordered flow of questions left the speaker wordless and no time to listen, talk less of recording the questions. Where would have he recorded the question anyway? Jesus did not record questions but made fun of his woeful opponents. It seemed as if he was besieged by thousands of demons. Undoubtedly that seems the case. He was literally assaulted. For somebody from Mexico, their behavior would appear very funny if not tape-like. Reverend J.H. S.J. tried his best to educate them, but their ears are hard, their learning slow. For many, this short absence seems an eternity. After those few days of leave, everybody wanted to touch Joseph Duarte and to talk to him before the other guys. Doña Sofia Cruz was part of the gathering too, though at a prudent distance. She is now a domesticated crank. Joseph Duarte was battling with the crowd, as a devil in holy water. At that particular moment, which always occurred some minutes after the gathering, as the parish priest knew his parishioners, he came to save the embattling Joseph Duarte and invited everybody to prayer. They willingly obey as they were religious. That was the end of the Calvary of the young Joseph Duarte. The prayers were that of the simple people of God, the Rosary, also known as the Prayer of the Lowly. The Rosary is a short summary of the good news of the Kingdom of God, right from the mystery of the Incarnation through the mystery of the coronation of the Blessed Virgin Mary, the Mother of God as the heavenly Queen of the heavenly kingdom. The peasants have a strong love for Jesus and especially his mother, the Mother of God, for her humble yes. She did the will of God. That is the yes that changed radically the face of the world. A word was never before so pregnant with meaning. The love of the Mother of God is expressed by a devotion to Our Lady of Guadalupe, who delivered them from the yoke of the ancient deceptive serpent by local name Xutl, the one who crushes the head of the serpent, or Xutl, the one who crushes the serpent. That devotion to Our Lady was strengthened by an event. During the year of famine occasioned by the internal wars, she was called upon to intercede and the famine was overcome. The interruption of the happy gathering by Reverend J.H. S.J. did not calm the ardor of the people to listen to their ambassador to Mexico. This city was strained with thousands mirages. But people will not surrender until they got the gist of the stay in the magic city. They will gather later at night at a given location, with great likeliness again in the same house. But Nino Duarte, his cousin, and Rodolfo Ramirez, who are his alter egos, were beside him and were already trying to have the first-hand account of the trip. Some small groups will come to invite him to account for how he made use of his stay outside the village. They wanted to have a full report of his city sojourn and his deeds. This, they wanted in some secret place. What is sure is time will be set later in a secret place, but there is no secret place for any talk or account. To wrap up, people will not sleep until they witness thoroughly to the event. Awake-keeping was necessary for any fellow interested in being part of the few happy to have the first-hand information from him. The second-hand information was generally adulterated and sometimes far away from the real message. Some held that most people are inclined to distort messages they receive from the first source for numerous reasons, some very irrational. The reasons varied from sleep or distraction during the information transmission or out of forgetfulness. Some may get words to supply for the missing ones. Others may try to embellish what was said or to make mountain out of a molehill. Whatever the case, the more transmitters are further from the source of the information, the more the oral account of an event may lead to a different sequence of events, sometimes falsified. For an account to be said true, its canonicity and apostolicity must be retraced without error. The listeners of the account of Joseph Duarte will comment for weeks the sayings of this one, and from time to time, another small story will come to shadow temporarily the great event. For sure, life must continue in the parish. Above all, many daily activities kept the parishioners busy. But what kept people busy was idle gossip. Gossip was a major sin in rural areas where there can be a superb monotony of idleness. A discussion could idly go on for many lengthy hours, with virtually nothing to talk about if not the same stuff of a quite monotonous life. But that is not so monotonous in the eyes of the beholder. Old stories are being recalled over and over again. With this serious occupation, the Lenten season almost arrived unnoticed if it were not the vigilant eye of Reverend J.H. S.J. Except for the infrequent leaves taken to play golf, he was always present at his duty station. For, Reverend J.H. S.J. believes, and certainly anybody with common sense does, all prayer and no fun makes J. a donkey priest. These seasonal golfing bouts added spice to the usual Irish walks in company of Joe Duarte. The golfing facilities were offered free of charge to all religious and priests. That particular golf club in Mexico was managed by a member of the Third Order of the Preachers. Plunged in the vineyard of the Lord, Father G.H. was sowing good news in the hearts of people reluctant and harvesting souls for the Lord. Not an easy job, but he was really dedicated to it. Fasting was his usual food. Free from triviality and vanity, he saw the Lenten season arrive with great delight. The old pastor cherished that season peculiar with the prominence it gave to the mystery of Christ's suffering and the symbolism of his supreme sacrifice. His whole liturgical life as a man of God was Christ-centered. He went through the usual rituals of the Lenten season with some special devotion that is commonly unmatched. In the general understanding of many people, probably out of ignorance, I don't see what otherwise could justify it, the Lenten season was seen as only a period reserved for prayer, fasting and a bit of conversion or return to the companionship of Jesus the Redeemer. The belief is exemplified with the do's and the don'ts they eagerly observed without rational discrimination. For staunch Catholics, the Lenten season is a period to do away with sinful attitude. For the bigots, that was a time to show off holiness and outshine their neighbors with sanctimonious look. But with great desolation or consolation the bigots are found in all religions. The spiritual showy fellows saw themselves as superior to others. The parable of the Pharisee and the publican was Jesus' outright denunciation of such way of fellowship of YHWH. He rejected unilaterally and totally all types of bigotry. But bigots have gone out of religious spheres to join cultural and intellectual arenas. By and large, while all people are expected to make effort to do away with bad habits, a lifelong process, many did not continue the endeavor after the Lenten season. Many were all fast to go back to their old demons after the ritual period. They forgot all the good resolution taken to live a better Christian life as times unfolded. Some people seemed not to see Christian life as a continuous unbroken process. Many were ritualistic in their approach to religion, something Reverend J.H. Thomas J. tried to balance with a teaching of a practice of the true religion rooted in the holy fear of God that brings freedom. This very Lenten season for Reverend J.H. Thomas J. was going to be special with the celebration of his 50th year anniversary as a companion of Jesus totally committed to the apostleship of the Lord. A delegation of high-profile companions were expected to show up at the function. Certainly, the Black Pope will be of the party. Interestingly, there will be great agitation, time of excess merriment for the parishioners who will have a change in the monotony of their lives. While Reverend J.H. Thomas J. was getting ready to celebrate his Golden Jubilee, on the other side of the planet Earth, Robbie Radransamy, S.J. from the Asian Assistancy, also known as the Ritchie Assistancy, had just completed his second year of regency. He was set to complete his theological studies before the next controversial move. This Indian companion of Jesus will years later come to limelight as the father of opposites theories. He will be the center of admiration for his followers and a subject of scorn and envy from his strong critics. He will be the epitome of the controversial Jesuit. In any case, the very act of being a companion of Jesus was already a source of controversy. Thus, for a Jesuit to be at the center of controversy is rather a rule than an exception. For this attitude, Ignatius of Loyola and his early companions narrowly escaped an execution for heresy. Was not Jesus himself a controversial figure, and yet? He sacked all those who made the temple a playground for their trades, spoke with women. On the issue of eating he was considered a notorious glutton compared to his cousin and forerunner, John the Baptist, a man living only on honey and wild locusts. Thank God, he was not accused of breaking the seventh commandment. That would have been a serious controversy if not a sin. One could hardly fathom the subsequent great scandal that would have ensued. He ate without washing his hands, and to make things worse, he invited himself at the table of people deemed unworthy and degenerated Jews like Zacchaeus, a tax collector and a vile extortionist. After his conversion he will be fervent follower of Jesus and will replace Judas Iscariot as Matthias after the demise of the former. For the holders of the right doctrine, those Jews, collaborators of the Roman administration, were simply in a lighter sentence seen as the enemies of YHWH. To bring his case more beyond the pale, Jesus of Nazareth called himself the Son of God. Can anyone better outsmart him by stirring worse controversy than that? Who is Radransamy, S.J.? An Indian Dalit, later known as Reverend Rabbi Radransamy, S.J. or the Rabbi. First of all, the opposite of Reverend J.H. S.J. and his pupil, and a man with unprecedented power of attraction. His worst revilers describe him as a dangerous combination of sly and shy, an elusive figure. These harsh words, however, do not apply to the endearing Joseph Duarte, still shielded in a safe spiritual life. Aloof from controversies, he was not yet part of the quarrel of ideas and the power struggles that could be a thorny issue on congregational premises even far beyond. Why do people quarrel about issues pertaining to God? A quarrel is primarily a quest of and for power. A keen analyst notices at the go that ideas are just a mere disguise to express the real focus of the quarrel, power. But how many are keen observers? Not so many do observe well. Many issues originate from lack of keen observation. Keen observation allows one to see God. How many see God? Who is God? These are interesting questions and amazing answers will be given by Raj Rabbi Ransome in years to come. At this time, the rabbi was yet in his early formative years with the companions. But his spiritual investigations were far advanced though not available to a wider audience. Shortly could any one companion anticipate the fame of this frail man from the province of Gujarat. The announcement of the death of God is a joke, a tasteless joke and by no means an irreverent saying to eschew. The rabbi refused to buy or to subscribe to such an outright nonsense, though. Maybe he was not invited to preside over the funeral service, which some have tried unsuccessfully to organize with much sophistication. God who is cannot die. Only a fool could in his madness announce the death of God. No one shall declare the death of God, this is just an order by Manlius. But will the pirates of the mine follow this order? Back to Mexico, Joe Parks, unlike his fellow companion-to-be, was facing a different crowd. It was made up of his enamored sisters. "Joe, do you have any news about your friend?" That was an anxious voice when querying her brother. "I hope you will arrange as soon as possible to visit your friend's place. I mean to meet up again with Joseph Duarte." "You are being pretty impatient, Corazon. Without communications facilities, it is quite difficult to manage any travel arrangements yet. But the best time to visit will be during the low season." "Oh, what a pity," the girls picked up in chorus. "Let us have a stroll, Esmeralda." "John Moore, are you with us?" Corazon anxiously asked him. "With you for?" He moved on, that is a difficult question. "No manners, please," objected Corazon. The girls were a bit upset by their brother's casual treatment of their urge to see Joseph Duarte. Even the blind can spot out a lady in love. None is more impatient than her. She is easily upset. She longs continually for the subject of her love. "You guys have to pace down. The travel arrangement will be made soon for the greater glory of God." "Most certainly for the greater glory of God," emphasized enigmatically John Moore, Sr. "Boys, you're outdoing yourself," objected Corazon. "These boys are really ... forget it." While all these people were arguing over the possible visit to Joseph Duarte, he was busy accompanying his parish priest in his missionary achievements. He followed his mentor and learned the religious attitudes required from a man of God and a companion.